At the time, people didn't indicate their shock, but in 2010, there was a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album that came out whenever this channel was actually very, very young. In fact, if I remember correctly, if my memory is serving me to its highest degree, it actually came out directly before Cover Killer turned to Cover Killer Nation. So prior to us being in the format that we are today, we had a new Tom Petty album entitled Mojo. Shockingly enough, I don't remember, at least off the top of my head, people wondering why I didn't review that album, principally because at that time I was doing nothing but metal. Here it is in 2014, Hypnotic Eye, the new album from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, has been released, and now this is one that is encouraged, or has encouraged a little bit more in the way of questioning. Are you going to review the album? Hey Cover Killer, what about a review of the new Tom Petty album, Hypnotic Eye, coming out soon? These are just, kind of samples of messages that I've gotten in regard to this album. So, of course, I'm going to give this album a look. I've looked at albums from artists such as, Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Bob Dylan, so Tom Petty is definitely one that belongs in that same pantheon, that belongs in that same category. So, let's talk about this a little bit. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers have been around for a long, long time. In fact, this is one of the more classic groups that we've talked about here on this channel. I mean, let's face it, they're really post-bordering the 40-year mark whenever it comes to releasing albums. And Hypnotic Eye, in a nice way, is kind of a little throwback to all of those early Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker releases. And it's kind of a nice touch. It's something that really showcases that even though old dogs will sometimes try to manifest new tricks, and I can call him an old dog considering he's as old as my parents are, which is 64. He'll be 64 in October. It's definitely one where you kind of like to see those same quote-unquote old dogs going back to the tricks that they were actually doing as youngsters and really showcasing why it was something that was a hit, why it was popular, why it had a certain resonance and a certain flavor to it. I think what really is the strength both on this album and what has been a strength throughout Tom Petty's career has been his lyricism. His ability to really write some meaningful lyrics that in some ways maintain a certain amount of simplicity but carry a very, very deep message that go along with them. For example, in American Dream Plan B, there's a track that says, "My success is anybody's guess, but like a fool I'm betting on happiness." Right there, he's basically indicating that he's hoping for happiness. He's hoping for a positive outcome. But he's also indicating that he's betting on this as a fool, which would kind of indicate that he also, in the back of his mind, really kind of believes, or at least realizes the fact that there's a good chance that the opposite is actually going to be the result. These are the styles and the types of lyricisms that you can hear from Tom Petty throughout the course of his career, and actually something that showcases itself on Hypnotic Eye quite a bit. In the song Power Drunk, there is one that's all about how the gods are power drunk and they need to sober up. And this could be taken in multiple ways. Such a simple message, such a simple line could easily indicate various different things. You could be quite literal and believe that it's the actual omnipresent beings of the universe that are power drunk and need to be sobering up. Or you could indicate that this is actually a metaphor for maybe world leaders or people that are, high-class decision makers. This could also be a metaphor for corporations, people that just have way too much power and perhaps influence way too much in this and other countries. This could be a metaphor for those who go to war over silly things. You could actually take that to mean so many different things, and the application would actually be very usable, very viable, and in fact would be a strong one. I really enjoy the fact that on this album, it's definitely one that seems like all of these songs have that richness to it. On a song like Red River, which definitely has that old, Tom Petty single feel to it, I just enjoy the fact that it is a nice free-flowing track that you can sing along to, or attempt to harmonize with the chorus, which, well, some people will be able to do, other people probably not so much. It all depends really on the character of your voice. But it just has that sing-along quality to it, and that's another strength that Tom Petty has always had. His songs, while they've maintained a very simplistic charm, have always had that real, poppy sensibility to it, even though they are definitely a classic rock band, just a classic rock, band of all ages, for all ages. And I really enjoy the fact that you have a track like that, like Red River, that really has that same viability. It has that same intelligence to it, where something that may seem a little bit simple, a simple little idea, can easily still maintain that sing-song quality. This song is all about a girl that he meets that has a very deep appreciation, or at least a deep love, of some different forms of belief. Washing away mud from a river is, once again, something that could be taken metaphorically to mean a number of things, or it could just simply be a physical act that is representative of something, whether it be washing sins away, or something that really represents a cleanliness, a soul cleanliness, an inner cleanliness, a cleanliness of the mind and spirit. It's definitely one that takes on various topics. This is also an album that really has a strong track near the end of it called You Get Me High. Now, initially, people who are not kind of keen on using letters as numbers, as Weird Al would say, or letters as words, as Weird Al would say on Word Crimes, would immediately take a look at the letter U being used to indicate the word you and probably get a little bit peeved. I know the first time I saw it, I was not necessarily too thrilled, but the song itself is fantastic. It's a very basic message, and you could definitely, once again, transform the lyrics to mean anything, but principally one that has a lot of feelings of love, or feelings of, real interest and real affection, used as a metaphor for, drugs. It's a drug reference. And this is also one of the strongest played tracks on the album, even though it has a very simple vibe to it, a simple methodology to it. And once again, why really try to break something and try something that's really out of character for yourself whenever you have something, a songwriting style that really has not only taken you to some of the highest highs, but has also given you a lot of pleasure, creating. This isn't a style that Tom necessarily abandoned because he was tired of it. This was something where Tom had different music in his heart, and different music that he wanted to really portray during decades such as the 1990s and even the first part of the 2000s. There were definitely tracks and definitely music in those time periods that were very different by comparison to some of the things that you've heard on Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers albums, such as Damn the Torpedoes. But whenever you return to this idea with the Heartbreakers, whenever you return to the bread and butter that it takes you right back to your start, it's something where you almost see that this is something that was in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' blood, really from the moment in which they were getting their start, from the moment in which they first hit it big, or really made it to the map in general. Overall, this album has a nice feeling of old-style charm mixed with some new-style pleasure, and the new-style pleasure is mainly in the fact that Tom is now a gentleman who has been in the business for close to 40 years, and has also been a man of the world for more than 60, so he definitely has a perspective on life that has certainly changed a bit as he's aged. He's one that's always had a certain level of sensibility and a certain level of social relevance whenever it comes to what's going on in the world that surrounds him. But he's one that doesn't necessarily have to go right out and broadcast it. He's one that doesn't necessarily have to beat you over the skull with it. He's instead one that's able to perhaps, dance it up and, kind of change it up a little bit with a little subtle metaphor here and there. Shadow People definitely is an interesting track. It's one that reminds me of like the X-Files, just whenever you consider the term shadow people, whenever you consider the idea of shadowy figures. You could also maybe draw some allusions to films such as J. Edgar, all about J. Edgar Hoover, and the inception of, such departments such as the CIA. However, this song is also one that has a unique song structure to it, one that also has a false finish that leads to a very small and delicate outro. One that definitely gives you a little bit of extra, twinge, a little bit of extra paranoia as the song's about to complete. I really enjoyed this disc. I think that this is one that old school fans and the youth that are now starting to get into Tom Petty are both going to mutually enjoy, and they're going to have something to celebrate about with this disc. While this isn't going to be one that's going to have the same, overall legendary status as perhaps a Damn the Torpedoes, this is certainly not one to ignore. This is instead one that really you would place on the upper part of the echelon of Tom Petty's career with the Heartbreakers. I'd probably give this album a 78 out of 100. The flow is exceptional, the songwriting is definitely there, the lyricism is wonderful, and I draw a lot of different conclusions whenever I listen to lyrics. And so if there's a direct message to it, I guess I've just proven the fact that I've been able to transpose something different from it, and that's the beauty of it. Sometimes direct messages can really kind of simplify music to a point where it seems very singular and almost, even though it's very focused and has a very clear message to it, and if that message has been delivered properly, it's a positive thing, considering it becomes very, it's easy to for a listener to really reveal it and have it revealed to them and kind of back it or dislike it. But whenever you have lyrics that open the interpretive book a little bit, it gives you a little more to work with. What did you guys think about Hypnotic Eye? Do you think that you could just put the cover alongside the cover of the Black Keys Turn Blue and successfully brainwash somebody who's perhaps easily brainwashed or just stupid? I think you could, because this is another one of those covers that has one of those little eyeball tricks on it, which I kind of like. What was your favorite song off of this album, and what is your favorite Tom Petty song overall? Let me know in the comments below. Let's discuss some Tom Petty, and I will see you guys next time.